Hi students, today we're looking at holistic facilitation techniques. How to facilitate for holistic development. Your example as a facilitator is crucial in guiding a child's development. Your behavior and attitude should reflect respect, nurturing, and positive attention, as you are a significant influence on the child, representing the world beyond their family. Remember that you spend hours in the classroom with a child, and so you very, very often spend more time with that child than even their parents spend with them. And of course, this is not the ideal situation, but it is the reality in many cases. So you need to be a reflection of what they need to be when they grow up. Because it's not just what's in the classroom, what they're being taught from the book that matters, but it is how you attend to them. Key strategies for facilitating holistic development include: treat each child as special and consider their individual learning levels. Use creative methods to stimulate imagination, intelligence, and creativity through music, drama, storytelling, and interaction. Provide a variety of resources for children to explore in diverse ways. Encourage learning through action, free play, exploration, and discovery. Teach holistically by using natural settings and available resources. For example, teach about the weather during a rainstorm by engaging children in activities like identifying noises, observing wind and rain, and discussing the effects on the environment. In short, interact with the child. Look at them, learn from them, understand where they are in their learning journey, understand their cognitive boundaries as well as their cognitive strengths, and work on building what is strong in them as well as what is weak in them. So don't ignore the weaknesses and only build on the strengths, and don't ignore the strengths by only building on weaknesses. Allow them to have organized play where perhaps you set the setting, the tone, tell them what the game is, and have free play as well, where they get to decide how to interact with one another, because this is society for them. They are building a little society, so they need to learn what the rules of society are, how to act, what is antisocial behavior, how it is to be included, and so on. Through this, also allow them to have individual exploration and discovery, knowing that sometimes children just want to play on their own. They don't always want to play with peers. So allow them to have exploration as well as discovery. You can't always choose which behaviors you model. Some things are reflexive. Your attitude, attention, and social skills are constantly communicated to children, influencing their sense of security. Now, we hear very often that parents say, let the child go ahead and it's fine. The child's 2 years old. He needs to learn to be on his own. He needs to be independent. He needs to learn, I'm not always going to be here. In many cases, this is not actually entirely correct. It's true, children do need to learn independence, but more so, they need to know that they have a safe base to return to should something go wrong. So it's a paradox. When you teach your child at a very young age, and when you teach children in your classroom at a very young age, that they are able to come back to you should something go wrong, they actually learn to be more confident and more independent, knowing that there where they are is not the end of the world if they make a mistake. And they also learn that as far as they go, they also have a place to come back to that builds security. You also never, or I wouldn't say never, but there are times you don't understand what it is you're doing right and wrong as an adult as well. Perhaps you are acting in a way that a child does not understand, but you do it reflexively. Maybe you are being a bit too harsh. You're speaking to the child as you would an adult. Perhaps you shushed a child in a way that you would an adult. And so sometimes these actions are reflexive. But it's important that when you note that you do apologize, that you go to the child and you say, I'm really sorry for the way I acted. That is actually not the way I was supposed to act. because in this way, even though you are now continuing in models that you don't particularly choose which behaviors they model, you can go to them and be cognizant of the fact that you did something wrong so that they know that that actually was not the model that I need to seek. The core learning behaviors, attending and problem solving, are essential learning behaviors. By modeling these, you have a strong example for children, demonstrating how to focus on tasks and solve problems effectively. And again, this happens most freely on the playground, where children run into obstacles, both physical, both and emotional, and they are able to learn to mitigate them independently. Your own life skills matter as well. What is it that you know what to do? What is it that you've been doing right and wrong? And how is it that you can change incorrect behaviors and build on ones that are really correct and worth modeling? As a caregiver, you model crucial life skills such as cooperation, competition, conflict resolution, building friendships, and maintaining relationships. These skills form a foundation for the children's development, influencing how they manage their own relationships. They learn from you first. Children do what they see. Children learn social skills by observing and mimicking adults, making you a significant influence on their behavior. Even when mistakes or negative emotions are displayed, children absorb these, so your values and behaviors shape the children's interactions and relationships. Don't go and show a child mentally unstable emotions and actions just because it's part of your truth, it's part of what you do, it's part of how you wish to act. You go in with structure and order without being militant because that is what they need. They don't need your chaos. So think again, take a step back, think about how to act and react and build from there. How to resolve conflict between children. Children need to learn problem solving skills, cooperation, compromise, and active listening. Decide on the best option. Evaluate different consequences. Define the goal, because if you can't define the goal, you don't know what it is. So define the goal. Ask what happened. Calmly ask for each child's perspective. Acknowledge the facts and feelings of each child. So remember that information is processed differently in different processing systems, our brains. So you've got information from the one child coming in and being processed differently to the information on the other to the other child. That does not mean that they see one sees black, one sees blue. It just means that perhaps one sees royal blue and the other one sees navy. So there are differences, perhaps slightly in the way they perceive. So try to see what the perception is, and based on that, you'll be able to work out the fact of what happened. Okay, so only one thing happened, but perceptions might differ. So you need to see what that one thing is and how you can assist differing perspectives. Define, my apologies, help children understand how their behaviors affect others so that the one knows that what they've done is wrong and they understand perhaps where the other might be coming from. And so children need to also be able to understand one another's points of view, but that works in time. It happens in time. Define the goal. So determine what both children want to achieve and acknowledge the importance of both needs so both feel heard. Brainstorm for options. Facilitate brainstorming without adding suggestions. Let them speak. Let them spit out ideas, but you are allowed to clarify if you're uncertain of what they're saying. Record ideas and keep asking what else until no more ideas are offered. Encourage thinking about how others might solve problems. So you tell them this is the way things are normally done. What do you think about it? How do you feel about it? Let's see if we can work our way towards that. Evaluate the different consequences. This is of the utmost important. The end goal is important. So at the end of it, if the consequence is massively negative, you want to work away from that. And if it's positive, you want to work towards that. So what is the consequence of what may happen? Discuss the consequences of each solution and ask how each solution makes the children feel and encourage the evaluation. And in this way, you can also see how you can compromise. Decide on the best solution and so how the kids can compromise with one another. Restate the problem and summarize ideas. Let children choose the most promising solution and make a plan for implementing the chosen solution. Be prepared to start the process again if necessary. When we look at the core skills for resolving conflict, we look at listening and allowing. Allow the person to express the problem. Acknowledge and understand their feelings. Find common ground between different viewpoints. Making amends. Discover what the other person needs to resolve the issue. This may involve practical actions or compromises. Apologizing. Encourage children to say sorry and show they care about the other person. Don't tell them, say sorry so I can give you a sweet. They need to understand why it is they're sorry and what it is they need to do to help the other person feel better. But they also need to realize if the other person isn't allowing forgiveness, that it is okay to walk away. So they may say sorry, and if they're constantly being pushed back, they may walk away. And I say this because you notice very, very often how upset children become if forgiveness is not granted to them. So that may become a secondary problem. Encourage the other child to forgive. Seeking third-party intervention. So this is only where necessary. You only have to involve people if and when necessary. And then that third party will help both children without taking sides. So to mediate if you are not getting it right. Alternatives to physical punishment. There are many studies on physical punishment and how it affects a child, and they show that it actually is not very beneficial. So you also have legal restrictions. Corporal punishment is illegal in South African schools and ECD settings. They didn't used to be, but because children were abused under that legality, they have now become illegal. Constructive alternatives. Withdraw privileges. This is a great one. Look at the thing they want to do most. If the child, so you look at obviously the degree of the problem before you look at the degree of the punishment. It has to align. So you go ahead and you say, right, I'm taking away this privilege or this object that you so desire, and when you decide to behave well, you can have the privilege again. The logical consequences. Allow the child to face the natural outcome of their actions. Allow them to see why what they have done is wrong based on the consequence that comes after what they have done. Allow them to manage and handle their consequence, of course, unless it is something major that you have to intervene with, but that's common sense. So allow them to see, oh, I hit my friend. Now my friend does not want to play with me anymore. I've now lost a friend for however long, because children have a quick rebound rate. But this is the natural consequence of my action. Teaching self-control. Children gradually learn to manage their emotions and behavior. It takes time. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen in 10. It takes time. By ages 4 or 5, children should have improved control over tantrums and outbursts, which is a lack of self-regulation, a tantrum and an outburst. So while sometimes laying down, you always need to lay down the law, but sometimes you come in with an iron fist and you say that is it with this tantrum. There are other times where you just need to hold the child, and there are other times where you just need to step back. And so you need to know how to handle the tantrum effectively, which is very difficult. But first things first, manage your own tantrum. Okay, manage your emotion first. See what it is you need to do to calm down in this chaotic state, and how is it that you can bring order. That is what you need to bring, because a tantrum is disorder. So you need to bring order to the situation, and you can't do that by screaming and shouting either. That's disorder. So what can you do to calm the storm? Because during that tantrum, the child is not in a space where they can rationalize or that they're willing to rationalize. So you need to deal with each tantrum according to its cause. The role of the caregiver is to teach self-control in manageable steps. Manageable steps, that's it. So you teach the child, take a breath, take deep breaths, let the brain cool down a bit. Help the child breathe. Some children want the hand to be held. In some countries, that's illegal. So you also need to look at policy. You also can't hug a child in certain spaces. It depends on policy. But if you are allowed, then you can also hug a child who's throwing a tantrum, depending on if they're punching and kicking and so on. But you are allowed to calm the arms, the legs, hold their hands, not in a way that hurts them. And again, according to the policy of the country you are in, as well as the scholastic policy, as well as the need of the child, which differs from child to child. The role of the caregiver is to teach self-control in manageable steps, behavior management at different developmental stages. It's different for each age and stage, and a tantrum looks different in each age and stage. Age-appropriate techniques, effective discipline methods should align with the child's developmental stage as well. So, of course, at baby stage, it will be different to toddler. So, at the baby stage, set limits firmly. Use a firm tone to set limits. For example, I know you want me to pick you up, but you must wait a bit while I tidy all the cushions away. So you speak to the child, even if the child is a baby, because this is how a child learns to speak and understand. And you have to enforce this with body language as well. So you may put the child down. Don't let the child scream and shout. At baby ages, you must pick a child up and calm the child down. But when the child is calm and able to be calm, you can also put the child with a on the sensory mats with mobiles. You may lay the child down on the back and allow, obviously in a safe environment, to have the mobile while you put the cushions away, while the child is in eye view, while you can see the child. Make sure that the environment around the child is completely safe and without hazard. Techniques, firm no messages. So you want your body language and your words to match. So you can also wave the finger so that the child starts to learn this is what this gesture means. No, we don't touch the flowers in the vase. No, we don't touch. So you can actually pull the child away. So even if it means doing it 10 times, eventually the child will learn. This is not what we do. So you are teaching when during these moments, instead of getting frustrated and saying, "Well, I said no," but the child's 10 months old. That's not how you do it. You pull the child away. Pull the child away constantly. Show this is not what we do. This is not what we do. Distract with alternatives as well. Here's a shape sorter. Let's see if you can pop them all in the holes. You distract, but you don't always want to distract. Sometimes you want to also allow the child to regulate his or her emotions. Child-proofing, remove or lock away dangerous objects. Supervision and consistency. Ensure consistent and constant supervision and limit setting. The toddler stage. Avoid power struggles. Set boundaries but offer choices. You can eat your sandwich when you sit down quietly at the little table. So, of course, you don't want to starve a child. So you need to understand when and how to compromise. But you need to show the child constantly from the time the child is a baby. This is where we sit. We sit at the table. You sit in your feeding chair. We have dinner at this time every night. This offers stability to the child's day. Provide warnings. Announce upcoming tasks to prepare the child. It's nearly snack time. You can go on the slide a few more times and then it will be time to wash hands and we're going in. It doesn't always have to be, no, I'm taking you off the slide, halfway down the slide, you're pulling the child off. You can say, go ahead, I'm giving you 3 times, right? Now it's 2, now it's 1. This is your last time. Come down the slide and slide your way right into that bathroom where you can wash your hands and go to the dinner table. Right, so you also want to give the child an opportunity as well. You want to give them the opportunity to finish up what it is they're doing, make them feel like they've also got a little bit of a say, but not so much of a say that they can rule the roost. Realistic expectations. Understand that toddlers are testing limits and developing their identity. this is also how they develop identity, is by saying, I'm able to do this, I'm not able to do that, I'm able to do that, I'm not able to do this. And in that, they realize what they are physically and cognitively and emotionally able to manage. When you manage temper tantrums, calmly hold the child if needed, as mentioned earlier, and avoid adding stress. Use natural consequences, as mentioned earlier. Age 3 to 6, avoid overly high expectations. Set realistic expectations and avoid pressuring the child. For example, if you allow screen time, which must be limited, as I say, constantly, avoid even where possible, which is nearly always. And then you may allow a child a certain amount of screen time after the age of 2 years old. Some studies say not at all until the age of 5 years old. So it's important to educate yourself on this, but there are parents who do allow. So in this case, where they do allow, when they say, okay, we are now doing an educational video, for example, also set expectations and boundaries from the get-go. So we are only watching a 15-minute video on the behavior of dogs. When this is done, we are putting the TV off. All right? You can actually stop them 5 minutes prior and say you've only got 5 minutes left now, so that they understand, okay, I've got 2 minutes left and then it's done, okay? Right, I'm now putting the TV off. So you are allowed to give that little bit of leeway. It's not even leeway because you've set the time for 15 minutes, but now you're also giving them a chance to know what to expect, and this helps them a lot. Use I language and logical consequence. Explain feelings and follow up with logical consequences. So when you throw your lunch on the floor, I feel very cross because of the mess. You can help clean up or sit alone on the beanbag. These are your options. I always say this child must clean the mess. You've made this mess. You must clean this mess. Okay, so you now I have to understand, because this is what you have done. I cannot always clean up after you. You need to learn to clean up after yourself, and that eventually will extend into future life lessons too. Gradual transition from security objects, so allow time for giving up security objects, like a safety blanket, for example, which some children have, and you might say, right, it's now nearing the end for this, let's move forward. Reinforce rules, so consistently reinforce rules for meal times, naps, and toileting. Direct towards consequences. Allow children to experience consequences, like drying the wet scooter. Encourage making amends, encourage problem solving, encourage cleaning up after yourself, and so on. Dealing with parents' concerns, so feedback focus. Parents may provide feedback based on the child's experience and enjoyment of activities. So positive feedback, parents may express pleasure if a child is engaging in new activities or has a role in events like a concert. Concerns, if parents report unhappiness or issues, investigate the specifics of the concern. Don't just leave it there. Don't just say, ugh, you're always just difficult. Find out why this might be and what we can do about it. Educating parents about the ECD Center's approach. Introduction. Introduce yourself and your facilitation approach before the year starts. Welcome letter. Send a letter explaining your philosophy and approach. For example, focusing on individual development without pressure. Example. Provide a concrete example of how your approach works, like scaffolding. For example, you can say, I do, we do, you do. Let us provide an example of how this works, and you can show the parents in the classroom. Feedback invitation. Encourage parents to provide feedback via a suggestion box, personal contact, or regular feedback sessions. Making time to deal with parents' concerns. So feedback time. Include a feedback slot in meeting agendas for parents to discuss concerns. They have time to tell you as well what might be the bother. Individual meetings, meet with parents briefly to understand concerns. In South Africa, we're allowed to talk to parents at the gate. You're allowed to say, very quickly, this is the situation with the child in class today, this is how it was handled, and you can move on. So you can also just do that one by one as parents come in to fetch children. Feedback slips as well, they provide suggestions and a locked box at the playgroup entrance for anonymous feedback as well. So you can have generic feedback slips where you've got them at reception and parents can just slot it into a box. Responding to parents' feedback, respectful response, address feedback with respect and acceptance, follow up, offer to reflect on the feedback and arrange a follow-up discussion if needed. Guidelines. Child priority. Focus on the child's needs over personal pride. Understand issues, so listen carefully and reflect on the parent's concerns as well as the child's concern. Open communication. Maintain dialogue about concerns and child participation. Support. Help both the child and parents adjust to the ECD center and your facilitation. It helps when you communicate. It helps when you keep them up to date. Record keeping. Document parental feedback and conclusions in your journal so that you can see if the feedback has come to, if they've been able to come to a good solution at the end of it, and if positive feedback has flown thereafter. Feedback shows your weaknesses and your strengths. So constructive use, so accept and use the feedback to enhance your strengths and address your weaknesses. And analysis tools, use various methods to analyze and improve your facilitation based on feedback. If you would like to discuss this session, if you have any queries, you may reach out to me.